welcome to Seddon Laceys Comic Stash in our new home at PopCulture Productions. And this is a very special live show as we are covering the new film, The Batman.
The new film, The Batman? I thought we were covering Batman 66 for the 85,000th time that we've had a chance to talk about Batman 66.
Fuck, did I miss the memo?
Well, I found it really hard to find a cinema that was showing Batman 66 in the last couple of weeks, but, you know, I got there in the end, so it was all good.
So, anyone new to the channel, you all are. It's the new channel. But anyone new to the show, even, I'm Lacey. You may know me from such wonderful things as Wrestling 20 Years Ago, Show and Tell with Tunes, and other such ventures. That there, wrong way, that there is Seddon. You may know him from such places as the Renaissance Men.
I think at this point in time, I'm thinking more of myself as the man who pulled off the amazing miracle of getting us live, because I really didn't think we were. New software that I was playing with right the way up to about 1 o'clock this morning, and I did run a couple of test private videos, but I still wasn't the slightest bit confident we'd get live.
So as always with everything YouTube, like, subscribe, ring the bell. Do this because this will be the new home for the Comic Stash, but also Seddon's wonderful TEW videos.
Yep.
And there may be some extra new things coming. Show and Tell with Tunes maybe is making its return, but not in the format that it used to. I'm not going to sit here and play 10 songs to you because of dirty copyright strikes. There will also be...
We're a dab hand at the copyright strikes now, Chris. What are you talking about? We know our way around a copyright or two. Sometimes weirdly having to blur out the whole video to get around it. But yes, it's hopefully going to be a home of lots of new content and hopefully some new voices. I certainly have been trying to get my dirty little mitts onto anyone who will listen to me to come along and, I don't know, join us in this adventure. Something that I think we've both really enjoyed doing, coming on camera. Maybe not enjoy that bit so much, but talking. But if you are watching and you are interested in getting involved, you've got any ideas for shows or anything like that, we do have a Facebook group for you to come and join. And I believe there's a ticker tape showing at the bottom right now, sexily, to let you know where that is. And also, we're fully contactable on Twitter, and I'll bang the Twitter up later. But yeah, new home for us. And again, hopefully a new home that you guys enjoy, but also want to come along and play with us.
Yes. And it will be a case of, as the name says, it is pop culture. So anything, music, films, TV, games, comic books, anything.
I think our biggest problem is time, isn't it? Like, it's not a lack of hobbies, it's a lack of time to actually dedicate it to all the hobbies that we've picked up along the way.
Yes. So, as is tradition on the stash, we will begin with Reading Corner. So,
sorry, every time I do anything, I get this miraculous reaction on my face to go, I think that worked.
So, Mr. Seddon, what have you been doing in your dirty reading corner?
Well, this is a bit of an odd one, Chris, because you are probably quite aware of what's been going on in my reading corner. But I'm actually, I think I'm talking about some stuff, because this is live, that is actually post some of the episodes that haven't released yet. But for those that are joining in for the first time, I've been reading. I went back in a time machine, as I always like to do, because I just get fascinated by the old stuff. But I've been reading 1985 Captain America comics, and in particular the Mark Grunwald run. And Chris and you guys, if you carry on watching our videos, because the Stash videos will release on this channel, will have to listen to me go on and on and on about the first 2 issues of it. I'm not going to do that tonight because we're all about Batman tonight. But I've read a couple more of the issues of it. In fact, I'll flash up a little visual now. It was Captain America 309, which was the return of Madcap, who debuted a couple of issues before.
Nice.
And do you know what? It was quite a cool little issue because we went right back into the Jack Monroe Nomad storyline with him, but Cap is now finally being integrated. Now that he's finally back in New York,
Because he was on that long ass plane ride.
Oh God, yeah, and then went to the West Coast first to shill a big limited series. But yeah, he's finally
see upcoming
back.
episodes to find out more about those.
Yeah, and he actually, one of the big plot points of this is he goes back to his flat and he meets up with his girlfriend Bernie, who is his girlfriend at this point, and they have what isn't probably the most romantic reunion for people who've been away from each other for so long. He's just kind of like, "Where's Jack?" And she catches him up on the story. But yeah, the rest of the story is about Jack trying to take down Madcap, and he does it by infiltrating Madcap's lair and effectively just saying, "You're right, Madcap. The world is a crazy, loony place, and I want to be part of the crazy loony." But it is all a big ruse for him to take Madcap down, and he does. But the big part of this story really is him and Cap getting back together, and Cap takes a big step back, lets Nomad do kind of all the fighting. And at the end of the issue, Nomad says, "Right, this has been great, but I think it's now time for me to go off on my own." Now, this felt like an issue where, and I think I've mentioned it when we had a bit of a focus on Nomad in previous issues, but this did feel like almost Grunwald saying, "This was a big feature of the run that come before, but I'm doing something different, and maybe he's going off to the side for a little while." Now, I do think he'll come back, and there is kind of, in 1980s comic style, there is a little bit of a tease of going, like, almost Nomad will return. But yeah, I think for this point, it is very much getting us to Grunwald dealing with Cap, and we get loads more sort of Serpent Society hints, which we've been getting over the last couple of episodes, and the cover for the next issue, which they preview, is all about the Serpent Society. So I'll be getting all snaky for our next reading corner, no doubt. But that is it for me in my reading corner. What have you been up to?
So I have been on the freebies, as I do when I'm at work, because I put it on the screen and try and read as much as I can, which usually means I get through one issue in 2 days of work. So I have read Captain America's Road Force #1, as sponsored by Harley Davidson.
I tell you what, sponsorship comics, that's the way. That's the way to do
it. So this is another one of the Infinity collection. So it's done obviously as a digital only thing, and is, compared to the other ones that have been digital only that we've done, like obviously I've read the Ms. Marvel one and the Jessica Jones one. This one works really well for that, because how it does like the back and forth talky bits and stuff. Basically, Cap is off to save San Francisco. He has to go out with his biker gang, which includes Black Widow, Agent One, and another couple of people I've never heard of before. But yeah, it was a fun read. Would I go and find more of these? Yeah, I probably would grab the rest of the run, which thankfully we can with the Marvel Unlimited. But yeah, it's actually one of the ones for the infinite way of telling the digital comics. I really quite like this one. This was done properly.
Well,
it has restored a bit of faith in it.
You sent me the cover, and I was like, the Harley Davidson bit is front and center, isn't it? There's no way that you're not seeing straight away that this is, again, shilling some advertising and probably the real prompt for it. But it was strange because the Cap story that I'm reading at the moment, a lot of the time when he's not spending many, many hours on a plane getting from A to B, he's quite often on a motorbike. So I guess it really does have that natural link to Cap is a bit of a biker boy in certain areas in his life. And it is really how he gets from A to B a lot of the time. But I really was wondering how good is this just
this is
to spell Harley Davidson's?
No, this is just, they had a story, and basically instead of them just being on generic bikes, Harley have given Marvel money to make them be driving Goldwings and Harleys. And the thing is, they never mention Harleys. They never say what type of bike they're riding. But as someone who has a bit of knowledge about motorbikes, you can tell they're Harleys.
And I think maybe that's where I'd lose out a little bit. Like, unless it's got Harley written on the side or something like that, I probably wouldn't be able to tell. Although I did watch sort of Sons of Anarchy and things like that, so maybe I would have a better eye for it than I thought. But I don't know. I'm just always concerned in when it's a story that is there for like an advertising campaign and things like that. We talked before about some of the times where it's comics doing licensed characters rather than like an advertising bit, and kind of going, well, do they really bother anymore because people are going to come along for the license or anything like that? What does it do in like the Infinite world? Does it do anything like really swanky with its interaction, or is it just
so you'll get like a background panel where they're talking, and then the background panel stays, but then they're then on the bikes, and then the next one goes, they're further down the road on their bikes while still talking, and it is very much.
Oh, that's quite cool, isn't it? Yeah.
What's the game? Spider-Man, the Spider-Man one on the SNES, where they used the comic book panels to tell the cutscenes, and they were, each group slightly on. It's very much like that, and I liked it a lot. And as I said, compared to the other Infinity ones, this was done properly. And the thing is, I think this is about 4 or 5 years after the first lot started coming out.
Yeah,
I think they'd clearly come across how they wanted these to look and be done.
I guess they'd honed their craft a little bit by this point, hadn't they? They'd actually figured out like what the tech can do, and not only what it can do, but what actually makes for a good visual storytelling experience.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I will be looking at some more of, because I'm intrigued with them. Because I think it said it went to Endgame, or it's a part of the Endgame story arc. So yeah, intrigued.
Well, as you said, they're free. And I think, there's a kind of strong bit in there, gives you a chance to sort of test out some of the characters, test out the format, test out the writers, test out the artists, I guess. But again, free. What do you can't be too angry, can you, if it's not brilliant when they're giving it to you for now?
Well, you say that, there's still that fucking Lou Ferrigno thing.
Yeah, but I think if you choose to read something that's entitled Lou Ferrigno anything, then you kind of get what you deserve at that point, I think.
True. I should have known it was going to be shit.
Yeah. I think there was certainly some clues, wasn't there? There were some prompts in there that sort of suggested that maybe it wasn't going to be a barnstormer.
So we will go into the movies,
our main event,
and the main event of the evening, and your return to the outside.
Yeah, I mean, that's contextually that is quite a key thing for me. Like, it had been over 2 years since I've been to the cinema. I hadn't been to the cinema during the whole of the COVID time, and I know that obviously the world kind of opened up a bit, but I was in no rush to go back, and I kind of wanted, when I did go back, it to be a movie I really wanted to see. I think Spider-Man was just a little bit too soon for me, and you see our Spider-Man review dropping on this channel very, very soon to kind of give you a hint. I'm glad that it wasn't Spider-Man that I picked, but this felt like a movie that the trailer had looked very good. It's a character I really like. So this felt like the right time, and it was quite handy because I had the week off work, so I could go during the day when it was pretty empty anyway. So yeah, I dragged my ass back to the cinema.
Yes, you went sans crotch goblins being around.
Oh god, yeah,
the best time.
Yeah, there was about 8 people in there, which I don't know whether that sort of says anything about the movie. I think it was more the time of day. We managed to get like a really early showing for it.
So going into this, before we go into our thoughts and feelings on the film, what were your initial reactions to Patterson being the Bat?
Well, I didn't mind it. I quite like Robert Pattinson, but I like him more for his post-Twilight stuff. No offense to his Twilight stuff, just not really my cup of tea. But yeah, I don't mind him, and I don't know. I think the Batman is much more iconic to me than Bruce Wayne. So I think once you've put a suit on someone, I think that the actor underneath it doesn't matter so much to me. I think, whereas I think for a lot of people there was a degree of preciousness around it, wasn't there? Of going, oh,
Yeah.
the dude from Twilight, he can't be our Batman. But yeah, for me, I was just like, the guy's got some acting chops. He's done some really good stuff in movies. So yeah, let's give it a go. Why not? It was probably my feeling on it, and it's not Affleck, so that was a plus for me.
Yes, because we didn't need more Batfleck.
No, I certainly didn't think so. Anyway, how about you? What was your thoughts and feelings on RPatts, RPatts, as he probably should be known?
See, I had only known him from being a shitty, sparkly vampire, but my better half had watched a few of his later films and went, he can actually really act. He is going to do this well. And then when the first trailer dropped, which is, as a rule, the only one that I will watch, and I saw that he was clearly young Batman, this was clearly early story, and when he goes, I am vengeance, I was like, so this is year 1 or 2 sort of era. He's going to work because he looks like someone in their or late teens, early 20s that's a bit of a mardy bastard. I'm in. So yeah, going into it, I wasn't as trepidatious as I thought I would have been when it was first announced that it was Patterson. But yeah, I have to say, we'll go into it more in a bit, but I was pleasantly surprised.
He felt a bit like a Christian Bale pick for me. Like, it felt almost an equivalent to that. You know, Bale had done some good stuff in his career. Okay, he hadn't done sparkly vampires, but you know, he probably at that point in time was not considered the leading man. And I think Patterson probably even had a bit more credos as a leading man going into this. But yeah, you know, felt like an interesting pick, and I think that's what I wanted. I think after going through many years after Nolan's Batman in the Snyderverse, where I think they tended to pick the most uninteresting casting and storytelling techniques, I wanted something different. And I think coming off the back of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, I wanted something that interested me as much, and I thought there was half a chance with Pattinson being the actor. I will say no, and we will go into this as we go on. I am much more of a director person than an actor, though. Like, there are actors I don't like, and there are actors I do like, but in most cases, I think they're often interchangeable, and it's actually the director that is going to make the biggest impact on it, rather than maybe the actors who do it. So yeah, I wasn't so concerned about RPatts.
Yeah, it's one of those. If I was quite impressed with it, and yeah, it did find me pleasantly surprised. The other thing was when they first sort of started doing the images of Riddler, and I was like, "Thank fuck, we're not getting Joker, so that's good." You know, we've had Joker before. We've had Joker many times. Let's get some love for someone else. And I saw the suit for Riddler, and I was like, okay, I'm intrigued.
It seemed to be quite divisive at first, that suit. I think there was lots of people who kind of went, well, where's his bloody question mark leotard? But I saw it and kind of went, okay, you know, like obviously they're trying to set a certain scene, a certain kind of darkness to this, and a suit like that is going to do that. So yeah, I quite liked the design of it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and the other thing that obviously we saw pre-seeing any of the film was obviously the pictures of Farrell as Penguin.
Do you know what? I hadn't. I'm going to be honest. When I went into the, I think I'd seen a Funko Pop. I think I'd seen a Hot Toy,
Yeah,
but I don't think I'd actually looked at any of the pictures. Much like yourself, I don't mind watching trailers, but because I knew I was going to see this one, I did step out of a lot of that. So I hadn't seen Farrell beforehand. So when I get into the movie, the Farrell look is a surprise moment for me.
yeah. No, so I saw basically an on-set picture that was doing the rounds, and I was like, "Fuck me, is that actually Colin Farrell?" It looks nothing like him. I was like, "Well played. You've done this properly." So do you have the running order for how you want to deal with this? Do you want
Well,
to?
I thought like maybe if we start off going a bit about like we watched the movie, and I think there will be some spoilers as we go through. I think we're going to get to kind of like the story beats a little bit later, but first I kind of wanted to go, how do we think it looked? And bearing in mind both Batman fans, and like I think going into this, there was certainly a feeling that this would lean more into like the Frank Miller Year One kind of stuff, but. What did we think of our new Gotham? Did it feel like Gotham to you?
Unfortunately, this was far too New York for Gotham. Um, Obviously, we see Madison Square Garden, we see Times Square and the video walls. Yeah, we all know that Gotham is a play on New York, but usually we don't get the blatantly obvious New York pieces. I do love the fact it was dark. I love the fact it was fucking raining all the time. And as I said, other than seeing MSG and seeing Times Square, I really fucking liked it. It was just those bits took me out because they've never been in a Gotham before, and even in the comic stuff, you never see the blatant New York bits like you do in a Marvel thing where they're quite happy to tell you it's New York.
Marvel is New York, isn't it? Like they kind of, despite what we found in some of the earlier comic books, when we went back to some of the origin ones, that maybe at certain points they might have made up faux city names, but like for a long time, Marvel, the main Marvel universe happens in New York, happens in the boroughs of New York, etc., etc. But yeah, Gotham has always had that identity of its own, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost like what if New York went bad? It's like the bad 80s and 90s New York turned to 11, isn't it?
Yeah. So what were your feelings on the visuals?
You said rain. That was one thing that really stood out for me. I don't think, other than Seven and Blade Runner, I've ever seen a movie with this much rain. One thing I'm pleased to report, though, this wasn't rain like we saw in other DC movies. It's just an excuse to get Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn wet in every scene possible. I really felt like it was a good, solid attempt to make Gotham feel as bleak as they possibly could. And I think that made a lot of sense because the story was very bleak. So I think they set the mood really well with the setting. Yeah, I'm with you on the New York bit, but I did like the fact that even though it clearly was New York, quite often they would go to the more gothic-y sort of buildings or the real back alleys if they were actually going to film scenes. And I mentioned Seven earlier, not just because of the rain, but some of the darkness in this. It often felt when they were at crime scenes like they could be jumping straight out of the movie Seven into a crime scene from that. Not because of the goriness, but just the way it looked. And, everything is, well, I say everything. The majority of things are happening at night. And if they're not happening at night, they are happening in a very grey, dark sort of background. So, yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was an excellent look. Now, could I watch movie after movie after movie in this? I don't know. I think I would like a bit of colour, maybe somewhere down the line, but I guess maybe that's when you get to Batman and Robin as the fourth entry of this franchise. But no, I really liked it. I thought they did a really good job on the set designs and the way that it looked. And yeah, bravo for the rain. I really liked in the look. I really liked the Batmobile.
Yes.
I thought that really stood out as a lovely kind of early doors. I need something to get round in. I need it to be good, dark, and cool. Let's beef out. Let's almost make a car look very, very cool and put a monster of an engine in it. Yeah, that I thought was great. Absolutely cracking.
Which I was talking to Yelly after or when I went to the football last week, and he'd just seen it, and I was like, he did mention the car, and I was like, well, yeah, because that's year one. He has basically a tricked out Mustang. In year one, they've done that, but they've just put a bigger fucking engine in the back of it.
While you mention year one, while we're on the look, and I think we'll get to this again with characters and story, but did you think it captured the year one look across the board sufficiently? Because that's what I felt like they were going for.
Yeah, they were definitely going for year one, year two.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously that has aged a bit because it is the 80s. That was, it was the back end of the 80s that came out. So it has got.
I mean, that was when New York looked like that anyway, wasn't it? Because it was just full of gangsters, prostitutes, killers, muggers, you know. So yeah.
I think it does a very good job of doing the year one, year two look, but with that 30 years modernization vibe, because it needed it did need a little lick of paint. I mean, just a little bit, because it's one of those where it does look its age and its time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really liked it, and in the looks department, which some of them will probably go on a bit later, but I fucking love the Batsuit as well.
Well, I was going to say, like, do we want to jump while we're doing look? Do we want to jump into the cast and the characters and what we thought of them? Because obviously, they do have a lot of that kind of visual look part to it. Let's go Bats first. He is the king of the road, and you've just said it there. You really like the Batsuit, I guess.
Yes, the Batsuit. It's very, very simple. It's a very simple, yet it didn't have a utility belt in a way of 66, but everything was there for a reason. So like, he had the gauntlet that had the different bits that he could use for when he was doing the detective stuff.
Yeah,
there, and the stun power that he had in it when he was having a fight. So everything was there, made sense, and had a use. And I really, really like that. And as I said, the last couple of Batsuits, especially the Snyder ones, were very bulky, very over the top.
The last couple that I think they did in that Snyderverse felt like they were leaning towards Dark Knight Batman, weren't they? And that's comic Dark Knight, not the Bale one. And yeah, almost that leaning towards, like, as he got older, he had to bulk up the armor, bulk up the way that he looked. And this is a lot sleeker, isn't it? A disappointing lack of bat nipples. I don't know how you felt about that.
I do not need bat nipples.
I like a bit of nipple on my Batman. What can I say? I jest. Obviously, no one wants. Yeah, no one wants nipples on their Batman. I'm with you. I thought it was quite. And again, we talk about the visual aspect. I think that suit fit the way that city looked. That is how I think a Batman would dress in that. And bearing in mind, Patterson is probably taller and slimmer, let's say, than probably our traditional Batmans. that I think that actually really helped it as well. That kind of elongated look to it. What about RPatts as Batman? And I mean that specifically RPatts as Batman, because I think RPatts as Batman and RPatts as Bruce Wayne are probably two different things. So let's go with his portrayal of Batman first.
I like this. This was very, very clever because they pushed more on him being vengeful and an angry late teen, early 20s, but they also showed the detective side really fucking well, which is something that, other than Keaton, we've not really had in any of the films.
It was one of my favourite bits of it, was the detective Batman elements coming into it. And again, I think Riddler stories tend to lean towards that anyway. But yeah, I thought that was really smart on their part. I thought that was really good.
So yeah, I very much liked him, and I'm intrigued to see if he comes back, and if so, what they do with him going forward. Because I very much want to see what this more detective Bats can do. Because yeah, we do get some set piece fights. One on the train, in the train station, being one of the early ones that happens, but this wasn't just a look at me batter the shit out of people.
He felt beatable in those fights, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't think he was going to lose, because obviously he is sort of trained up and a bit rock hard, and he's got, like, as you say, things in his suit to help him out. But yeah, he didn't feel ultimately like 100%. No one could take him down. And again, I like that. I like him to have a bit of frailty, certainly at this stage as he's learning.
Yeah, because the thing is, he's not boss mode Batman. He's not, the Batman that Keaton was, or that Bale was, or even Batfleck being grizzled old bats. This is young, spunky, will make mistakes.
Did you say spunky or sparkly?
Spunky.
Because I think that's a different movie you were watching if it's sparkly. We've got a shout from the chat of the return to his roots in terms of being a detective, and yes, I think because it's kind of it's an origin, but without being an origin, isn't it? I think they established quite early on. It's about 2 years into his career of Batman. Now, I think probably in modern day, people go, "Oh, he's been doing it for 2 years. He should be taking down gods and things like that." But I think about how good I've ever been at any job I've had to do after 2 years. Pretty pish, to be fair. And I've never done a job as hard as this. So, yeah, I think it is kind of really great in establishing that these are his very, very rookie years. And again, things like those fights, I think, do that really well.
Anything you want to add on that?
I liked him a lot as Batman. I really liked him a lot as Batman. I was fully bought into this is Batman. I am Batman at this stage. I will say though, and I will jump forward, not as sold on him as Bruce Wayne. And I know you've mentioned it a few times, this kind of like late teen, early 20s Bruce Wayne, who isn't the playboy yet, because he's not at that stage in his life where he realizes that that's what he needs to do, that he needs this alter ego to do stuff during the day. And he is more angry and brooding. Do you know what? I just didn't buy it so much. He was a little bit too broody for me, but a bit too sulky, well, maybe rather than broody. And I found when I was watching him as Bruce Wayne, I was thinking, put the suit back on, mate. Put the suit back on. I don't really want to watch you in this. I hate having a pop at that, because I think it was what they wanted to do and what the director wanted to do. I just, when we say about casting, I think amazingly they cast him and he made a really good Batman. I don't think he made a good Bruce Wayne, even in the Bruce Wayne they were trying to portray.
That's it. I'm in two minds with him as Bruce, because I liked the fact that as Bruce, he was that bit angsty. He was, no, fuck you. I don't want to go to this fucking service. No, I don't want to have to be fucking anything. Rah, no, fuck you. I want to be Batman and be fucking shit up.
I want to be Batman. You can't
Yeah.
make me. You're not my real dad. That sort of thing.
Whereas, yes, he's not his real dad, but Alfred makes him remember who he is and what he's meant to do.
It's strange though, and I know we said it earlier on when we said about our impressions of him getting it. I mean, I watched him in The Lighthouse. I love The Lighthouse. It is an amazing movie. Him and William Dafoe are so compelling in it, and I go, I know how good an actor you are, and admittedly, you can only work with the script and the way they want it to go. I didn't feel like his Bruce Wayne was great. I felt like it was, and whereas his Batman, I thought was really good.
So I do think it's just one of those. I think what they were trying to do with it is that he is angsty,
A sulky
young,
bitch,
and a bit of a sulky bitch, and doesn't know what is expected of him.
Do you know what though? I think like visually, he didn't come across as young. And I think maybe that's, and again, you look how you look, but I think from a casting wise, for the age range I think they were trying to go for, he looked older than that. He looked like a guy in his 30s. And I think like I'm a bit like, and I know the story tells you he is not, but I don't know, that kind of pulled me out of the angsty thing. I'm thinking, shit, now, mate, you're over 30 now. Get over this stuff. Move on. There's one thing I do need to pick up on our RPatts. A really sexy back. Now I say that not because I know it, but I was talking to some people at work recently asking about him and what people's feeling of. And a lass I work with just went, "Oh, I saw him in the Batman." I said, "Oh, what did you think?" And she went, "He has a really sexy back." I did try and clarify what makes a sexy back, and I didn't really get an answer. But yeah, for anyone at home who are into backs, apparently RPatts, very hot back. Do with that what you will.
The one thing I will kick us about for a Batman look was the raccoon wingsuit. No, that was not a good one. And the fact they made a pop of it, no.
Is there an argument though with that this is him again, early doors, learning how to do this shit? We said about the Batmobile, and whichever way it goes, whichever Batman universe you believe it becomes, that like later on he will have like a plane, he'll do all these amazing things. Wasn't this potentially him kind of going? Because I think even when he does the jump off the building, he kind of has this moment of like, oh my god, what am I doing? And I wondered whether it was even to and maybe I'm giving it a little bit too much credit, but I think as weak as it was, I think it was more to show that he hasn't got all his shit quite down yet, has he? Like he's not the Batman he'll be in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
And some of that is some ill thought out, ill designed equipment.
Yes. As we're going with bats and being told what to do by Alfred, Andy Serkis as Alfred.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like him. I think this was my least favourite part of the movie. I know people really like Andy Serkis. I don't think I do. And I think that was part of the problem. And I think he's got such a distinctive visual look to him. And again, you can't help your face. What a shitty thing to criticise someone on. But I think he's got such a distinctive look to him that I just didn't buy him as Alfred. And I know he had a lot of... And of course, most of his moments were with Bruce. And I know sometimes they obviously was talking to him when he's Batman as well. But I think, he was often... When he was talking to him as Batman, he was trying to talk to Bruce, the guy behind the bat. And I don't know. I didn't like him. He just didn't resonate with me. It felt like they cast him because he has a name rather than that he was right for the role. But I acknowledge that I might be being a bit too harsh. But yeah, it just didn't. My least favourite Alfred, I would say.
See, it was a hard one with him because I don't think he was awful, but I don't think he was right.
Yeah. I think right is a good term. I don't think it was the right casting for Alfred.
Though one that I thought did very well and a well done version of the character is Paul Diano as Riddler. Fuck me.
You know, like I think I've seen, as we said, pre the movie and even post the movie, I have seen some criticism at the Riddler concept, like, you know, the suit design, all that sort of thing, and a bit of this isn't my Riddler. But regardless of that, what a performance from that boy! I thought he was absolutely excellent. He played. Let's be honest, a psychopath in this, like, yeah. And he played I mean, I was convinced, and don't get me wrong, like, I love him, especially in things like There Will Be Blood. I think he is an amazing actor, but in this, yes, I think brilliant casting, compelling in every minute he was in it. Even when you didn't know it's him. Okay, we're all grown-ups. We know who's behind it. We know who the actors are, but yeah. I think even when you're not seeing his face, like, what an amazing sell job to get you to realise how much of a off-the-wall psycho killer he is going to be. And I don't feel like at any point I had any sympathy for him because I wasn't supposed to. And I think that's when an actor's done his job really well, is that I really didn't like the bad guy because I wasn't supposed to like the bad guy. And that's because the bad guy acted perfectly as the bad guy.
Yeah, this guy is a creepy fucking psycho.
Yeah.
It's got that sort of throwback, something like the Zodiac Killer, or like some of those sort of old school, sort of 60s, 70s
serial killer or cult leader, that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think they play into it as the film goes on, don't they? As people actually seem to want to vibe with him, you know, like they kind of do a bit of like the social media buying and things like that. But yeah, I think that was the better part of that is that this guy who was effectively a creeper, who if you're in a pub next to him, you'd be shuffling down the bar and hoping to get away. But when he switches on that full serial killer cult leader persona, becomes amazingly compelling for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's the thing, very sort of brilliant to a modern sort of thing, very incel, very weirdos on the internet.
Yeah.
But
you can say it, Chris. Trump fans, you can say it. You can say it's fine. Yeah.
Trump fans.
Yeah.
But also with that sort of throwback to, as you said, a Manson or a Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
Where people were like, ooh, about him. And yeah, fucking that bit where he kills the mayor in the room, and it's just that fucking angry violence.
Yeah. And that instantaneous switch, isn't it? It's that jump from like, God, this guy's a creeper, or he's in the room, this isn't going to be good. Oh my God, this is worse than I thought it was going to be, because it's just that switch on violence. Similar, bizarrely enough, it reminds me of, and I won't spoil this because I'm not talking about it, but it reminds me of the ending of There Will Be Blood, where he's on the other side of that coin, and things like I don't know, like many of those movies where you transition from shit just got real. And I think, you know, that really was a key moment. If the look didn't tell you this wasn't Jim Carrey's Batman, and the lack of jokes didn't tell you that this wasn't Jim Carrey's Batman, that point tells you this isn't Jim Carrey's Batman, and this isn't that universe anymore. We're in a darker place.
Yeah, as I said, for the people that know Riddler as Jim Carrey or Frank Gersh, yeah, not anymore. And the thing is, this is one of those obviously I've read lots of Batman stuff, but I've never read a Joker or a Riddler this dark and this.
It's
evil.
Funny your Freudian slip there of saying a Joker. He felt more leaning into Joker, didn't he? And I'm not saying like with like the chaos element, but he felt like he would fit in, sat next to Joker in a room.
Yeah.
As a pantheon of villains more than I think he traditionally does, and the way he's been used before. So yeah, I think there really was a lean into, in this Bat universe, the bad guys are bad. They are unhinged. They are like Riddler probably was one that wasn't often in Arkham in the comics because he was a petty thief a lot of the time. This one is going into an Arkham because he is seriously deranged.
Yeah. And yeah, I loved it. And even more props to him for the fact of, from what I heard after watching the film, is that when he was on set and at the point when he had the full mask on, the full mask stayed on and buttoned up, and he really was living the character.
You would be jarred off, wouldn't you? You would be hating the world and want to murder people at that point.
But yeah, so I
know what it's like doing a Halloween special last year with a mask on for about half an hour, and I was ready to kill all you motherfuckers.
So the other one of the big ones in this, which a lot of people will probably be talking about, is Zoe Kravitz's portrayal of Selena / Catwoman. I liked this. I thought this was a very clever way of doing Selena, and the fact of it plays off what we now have with Bats and Selena in the comics.
The Bat and the Cat, yeah,
being a thing together. So it was sort of like, we've got early shit with how Batman is, but we've also got, you could go down and read a copy of Bat and Cat and know exactly where that picks up and what that is. And yeah, I like that a lot. And as I said, I think she was very good as both being Selena and being the alter ego ass kicker and turning that switch.
I said about how much I like Paul Dano in this. I think she stole the show for me. I think she's brilliant in this. I think partially because it's I think the best lean into Batman Year One. I think she feels like a Selena that would be in the comic as well as in this movie. I think she is an absolute superstar in this because every scene she was in, I wanted her to be in there longer. I wanted to have more lines. I wanted. Now I'm going to say something that I may bitterly regret because this happened once before and it was really bad. I want a Catwoman movie, and I want a Catwoman movie starring her because I think it could be really, really good. And you're right. I think the way that she played off, and certainly I think more so even in the suits, but the way the Bat and Cat relationship kind of blossomed early, it felt believable, didn't it? It didn't feel like, oh, we're just fudging these together because they're the male and the female character in this. But I think how she interacts with all of the people around her, when I say all the people around her, not necessarily the other bad guys, but how you see that her kind of heart is with the girls that work in this club and she wants to look after them. And I think, there was kind of certainly some strong hints that there were other relationships that she was equally as interested in having with other people. And I thought she was brilliant. I mean, the only thing I massively remember her from previous to this, I know she's done a lot, but I remember being in Mad Max Fury Road. But I mean, there's so many people in that, and she doesn't have a big role in it, and there's people kind of outshining in that. And I did watch the TV show Big Little Lies, which I just didn't like, and not because of her, I just didn't like it. But I don't know, show stealing for me. Really, really impressed with her.
Yeah, I can't think of anything I've seen her in before. But yeah, no, I think she was perfect as Selena. And yeah. If we're getting more of these, can we have more of her back too? And can we definitely have more of a sort of pulling in of Batcat and that relationship thing and doing it properly? Because from what they've done so far, is being done properly with how these two are in the comics.
Well, sure, we'll pick it up like as we go on, and what comes next, and if anything comes next. But I think for all of the building a universe stuff that we saw Marvel do and DC attempt to do, her and other people, but they made me really interested in the Batman universe. But to the point where I was interested enough to go, I think I could watch a movie where Batman wasn't in it in this universe. And again, maybe with Catwoman, I don't want to see it in Gotham. Like I potentially like to see a somewhere else. You know, like there's a great limited series, When in Rome, and you get to see the cat burglary kind of ways and something like that. But more Catwoman, please, at the very least. Even if we don't get anything else in this universe, I hope they use this as a jumping off point to maybe sort of again go solo with her character.
Yes, and obviously Oswald, Colin Farrell.
So you said it earlier, and bearing in mind I hadn't seen him, but I knew that he was playing the Penguin. And when the Penguin come on screen, I went, no way is that Colin Farrell. And I think the look was brilliant. Like and where we said about the Riddler obviously takes up a totally different look than what we're used to. I think the Penguin very smartly has a lot of the characteristics of the Penguin we are used to, even going right the way back to 66. A lot more so than the DeVito one in the Burton universe, I think. But, it has that stylistic look to it. But just that craggedy evil extra elements that were added to his face. Whoever done the makeup for that, I think, whether they got an Oscar or not, and I didn't bother to check, they bloody deserve an Oscar for that. That was phenomenal.
The one thing that did annoy me, though, and it also annoyed Colin Farrell, was the studio said that he couldn't smoke.
Yeah. A stupid decision, because he should have been smoking. Because you look at him and you go, he's a smoker. He'd be smoking.
Yeah, he has his little fag stick and smokes out of it. And the thing I loved about this was Penguin, as we know, is a known villain, but they did him so well in this, and they did him as he should be, that he's basically a middleman.
He's that underboss, isn't he?
Yeah.
But with aspirations of not being the underboss anymore, and I thought that come across really well.
Yeah, and done so well, and I'm all for this.
Yeah, and do you know what? Like, the fact that I knew it was Colin Farrell was, I don't know, slightly goes against what I'm about to say here, but it could have not been Colin Farrell as far as I was concerned. Like, and again, the makeup is part of that. But when I'm hearing him talk and when I'm hearing him do his Penguin, I don't go, "Oh, that's Colin Farrell doing the Penguin." I go, "No, that's really good." And again, I think his voice work was exceptional. And I think, again, going along with the look, he really stood out for me. And as much as I said I'm really hankering for a Catwoman movie, I don't think I'm so hankering for a Penguin movie, but I'm hankering to see more Penguin in later chapters, shall we say.
Yeah, it's one of those, I would quite happily have him come back as it's not the main villain in the story, but at least, have a turn up, maybe like being the one supplying the arms to,
or them having to go to that Iceberg Lounge again, get information, and like having to deal with him again, and him going full prick and holding out on the information. From the chat, and I think this is again a really good point, and I think it covers what we've just been saying about Riddler, Catwoman, and Penguin. Is good to see the villains grounded in a sense of realism and believability, unlike some of the portrayals we've seen previously. And I think certainly, like, you look at the Burton and Beyond ones, is that it was a lot less critique. But I think they really were trying to go for that, weren't they? They were trying to portray these villains as people who could exist in the universe that we exist in now, with that extra pomp and circumstance and flair. The fact that they want to be called the Riddler, the fact that you lean into Catwoman, you lean into Penguin, but enough grounded in reality to make you go, yes, this is a Batman movie but it's different. And I think
Yeah.
that's what it needed to be, didn't it? I think it did need to differentiate himself in some ways. One of my fears going into the trailer was that it potentially was just Nolan Batman again. And quite interesting for me as well is Penguin and Catwoman, of course, which was the Burton Batman Returns, wasn't it? And I think you put the portrayals of them side by side, like absolutely universes apart, aren't they? But still feel both right somehow.
Yeah. So sort of the main gist of the film.
Oh, there was only one thing I wanted to.
Yes.
There's one other thing I wanted to pick up on just before we move on from the cast was Jeffrey Wright playing Gordon.
Yes,
I liked him. I did. I guess I'm used to a lot more of kind of that.
Old Man Gordon.
Oh yeah, Old Man Gordon, and you know he wasn't quite there as Old Man Gordon, and I think he probably still would have been Old Man Gordon, but I think he still had that gritty cop, but that gritty cop who was willing to use Batman, and when I say use in a good way, but willing to kind of go, we want to solve crimes, and this guy can help us, and I think he come across really well. I want to see him back. If we have more, I want to see him back as Gordon. And the only other one that I want to pick up on was John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. And that guy has done amazing things in his career. He is a brilliant actor. I'm going to be honest, I didn't like him in this, but only because, and this is nothing to do with his portrayal, I think I've seen him in so many things that I couldn't help but see him as the actor rather than the character. But that's more on me. But more so, I love the fact that we had Carmine Falcone. And I know he has been used in the Nolan ones and he's been used in others, but I love the fact that you're getting the gangster mobster parts from the comic books brought into this as well, not just the villains, the known villains.
Yeah, so this to me is like this. That's what made a lot of sense for the whole Penguin story. Is that you've got Falcone, who is the head of the family. You know, Penguin works for him, but he wants to take over, and you had that struggle within the family, as we say. I loved it. I mean, it was very fucking clever.
Yeah, I think like you talk about like fan service and nuggets for fans. Like it's not the world's deepest fan service. It's a character and a main character in the movie, but I like it because I think for those people who love the comics, I think they would generally be very pleased for that character to have been a part of it. So yeah, big thumbs up for that. Although, as I say, I struggled to not in every scene see the actor rather than the character who's playing.
Yes. So going into the plot and how the film plays out, opens with obviously Patterson as Bats saying, basically reading like a diary entry.
Yeah.
So like my second year, I blah blah blah. I was like, yes, set this up properly.
Last Thursday, Alfred was mean to me. Dear diary.
But this is it set this up properly that it is telling you bluntly we are at very young, early Batman.
Yeah.
So this is a different Batman to every other time that you see Batman. Thankfully, we didn't have to see the parents getting killed again, because I thought that was going to be something we were going to get with it being early doors.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of almost smart, wasn't it? I think to lean into the look, people know Batman's origin now, and we can say his parents were killed in scenes, but actually we just don't need to show it again, and maybe setting it, as you say, a couple of years in. The world's smart to it now. You don't need that every time. I think we saw that with Spider-Man when Sony did that. I'm not a big fan of Sony's treatment of superheroes generally, but I think, again, smart on that. You go, the world knows these guys' origins anymore. You don't need to spend 40 minutes of your movie doing it. Yeah. God, imagine how long this movie would have been if they'd have done the origin. But
So we open with Riddler murdering the mayor in a very fucking gruesome way. And that sets the tone, really.
Yeah.
For what we're getting. We are getting basically Superhero 7.
Yeah. Again, like it doesn't shy away from violence in this, does it? You know, like I say, I think the fight scenes are relatively brutal. I think like a lot of the action that the Riddler takes is brutal, and I think a lot of the darkness of it bores like a degree of brutality to it as well. And yes, I think we talk about grim and gritty, like the Frank Miller years of writing Daredevil, but yeah, this was that plus things like Seven, those kind of serial killer motif movies, and like the Batman. We said it earlier. That kind of detective side of it this is about Batman trying to figure out who the Riddler is, where the Riddler is, what the Riddler's doing. And I think it's a smart storytelling technique to pull the story along, because you are, I don't know, maybe sort of teasing you in with the murder mystery elements of it. Like sitting there, I don't know whether you did this, but sometimes like when the riddle was kind of there or they go into the room, I wanted to solve the stuff. I wanted to see the bits that they were going to see. I wanted to get it before Batman potentially, and that tapped into something that I think I really enjoyed about the movie. That kind of that nature of going, look, here's a room. Where am I supposed to be looking? What's that on the wall? What's that on the floor? That sort of thing. I'm very clever.
And obviously we see Batman coming in, and as we said earlier, being a detective, and very much so sort of leaning in with trying to work out the riddles, trying to work out what his play is.
And the detective there, a detective there at the behest of Gordon, but generally not the behest of the rest of the police force. This isn't a pro-Batman era police force. I think realistically, most of the other cast treat Batman either like a criminal, like a vigilante, or as a bit of a, why is he here? He's not one of us. And I liked that. I liked the fact that Gordon was almost going against the tide, because he could see that this guy had something and he could be a help.
Yeah. Riddler then kills off the police commissioner, and we get something that I did find very funny. The thumb drive, which was inserted into a thumb in a car. Thumb drive.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's sick and sinister level of.
But the kooky stuff that probably we used to be used to with the Riddler, but a sick and a horrible version of that kooky, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was doing, the obvious play on words riddles, but the 18 version, not the PG version.
Yeah.
At that point, we see the Iceberg Lounge for the first time.
Yes, it was cool. It was really good. It was really good.
Yes.
It was it was one of the best bar-based set pieces for me since Mos Eisley Cantina in A New Hope. Because I kind of went like, that's what I saw in comic books, and it was so nice to see that portrayed in a movie. And okay, like, we said about like kind of modernizing it a little bit. Obviously, it had modern music going on in it. It was more of a dance club, but actually, like when you get to around the back rooms, it was a bit more gangster. It was a bit more like Penguin. Again, Penguin not been able to smoke. He'd been back there smoking like his lungs to pieces, I imagine. It had a really good feel to it, the Iceberg Lounge.
And I loved when Batman turns up at the door in full suit and they won't let him in.
Yeah.
So he batters them to get in.
Yeah.
That was just like, yes.
Poor bouncers, eh? That's a shit all night when you don't let Batman
in. So this is where we sort of are introduced to Selena, Falcone, and we get that whole sub story of the mob side and Selena and her family, shall we say.
Well, and I think it very much helps, doesn't it? That when you, at that point, our whole focus had been what's the Riddler up to? And of course, once you introduce a sub-story like that, you go, these stories are going to be linked. But it gave you a little bit extra to go on. Before we crack on, thank you very much to Complex Theory in the chat. Iceberg Lounge, apparently it's a music venue called the Printworks in London. Maybe in the summer we go and do our Batman tour and we go to the Iceberg Lounge in our heads and we go there.
Yes. So this is the point when in the Iceberg Lounge we see the special back room where, by the looks of it, anything goes, and if you've got the money and the power, you can have what you want. And we see that the DA is there, and he's corrupt.
Yeah,
in a surprise to no one.
And they don't tease it out for long, do they? They pretty much go hell for leather and just go, all of these people are corrupt. You start to see a load of coppers in there that will play a role later or have played brief roles up until this point. And you just go, okay, yeah, this is, we're now in the scummy side of Gotham. And we can see that there are so many people who are in power, be it low level to high level. All corrupt. Yeah.
And then Riddler hits again and takes the DA and puts a collar bomb on him, shoves him in a car, and drives him into a funeral.
So when we said like Seven earlier, it almost felt it got a bit Saw-like at this point. It was like, what death trap is he going to put round their head or neck next? I quite liked that. It lent into my sensibilities. I quite like Saw as a movie. Not most of the franchise, but I quite like the original. So yeah, I was leaning into that heavily.
So yeah, obviously this comes in. Bruce is there as Bruce, not as the Bat. And Riddler has his little phone message saying that he wants the Bats to be there. Bruce has that moment of, does he tell? Does he just come out and say that he's Bats? But he doesn't. He goes off, gets his suit on, and comes back. Deals with the bomb as a good old Bats does. We then see some more corruption with a giant drug bust happening because they'd just been sold off on it because they want to get rid of one of the other mob bosses so they can then take the drugs trade. I do love this dirty underworld corruptionness that's there because again, reading the comics and stuff, that is a big thing that you do see a lot of.
Well, and as much as that, obviously there's the wonderful cast of villains in the Batman universe, to a large degree, you would argue, do you really need a Batman if you had a good, honest police force? And I think, no, in a lot of cases, you would expect the police to do some of that work. But I think, that inherent corruptness of the system in Gotham makes Batman feel more necessary, and this version of Batman more necessary. It kind of swings into that. This needs an angry Batman. This needs someone who is going to go out there, knock heads, not really care about whether it's going to upset the status quo above. It's all about, you're bad, I'm having you, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Then get the fun Riddler trial as such, where he sets up the bombs in the orphanage.
Yeah.
Because, he has to be a nasty-ass bastard. And at the same point, because he wants to take out Bruce Wayne because he sees Bruce Wayne as part of the corrupt, evil empire, sends a bomb to his house where Alfred takes the hit and gets attacked by the letter bomb. This is where we start getting the more putting it into modern day, because this is where you start getting the Facebook posts and the YouTube video streams and things of.
And well, we talk about that. Obviously, feel free to like and subscribe on this and join our Facebook group. I'm not going to say we're going to bomb an orphanage because we're not. We're not. We're not. We're not. But yeah, come along and join us as well. It'll be a lot healthier than joining the Riddler.
And then we get the fact that Riddler has then sent bombs around multiple parts of New York so he can flood the city. This bit is one of those where I'm like, I like this. This is very much a good old-fashioned giant caper for causing wanton destruction.
There's something, isn't there, in that as well, of like the concept of using water to purge the darkness, the evil from it, and like wiping Gotham clean and starting again. I liked that. I liked that as a motivation for him. I bought into it, and I thought it was a really smart piece of storytelling as being his ultimate goal, effectively.
Yeah. Obviously, the same point as this is going on, Batman is in two minds of whether he helps himself to take out the Riddler or helps Selena, who wants to take out Falcone, because she has worked out that she is his child. So we get the Selena fight with Falcone, which, like that was very good.
This was one of the plot points, though, and I think generally we've been quite positive on it so far. I didn't like this bit. I must admit, this felt a little bit kind of shoehorned in, like, let's create this link. I struggled with this bit a bit. It felt unnecessary. I don't think it added, and in fact, if anything, I think it detracted from the rest of the story, unfortunately.
But to tie it into everything, Riddler shoots Falcone and kills him. So that sort of split everything together.
Well, and also around this point, we get like, and I guess forebodingly wise, for anything future to come, is like these kind of hints from Falcone that Thomas Wayne was not the knight in shining armor that potentially was, and maybe there was a darker side to him and things like that. And certainly from a lot of the stuff we've read, rather than what we've ever seen in TV shows and movies before, I think it's the first time that I've seen that kind of wrinkle added into the universe in movies rather than comic books. Yeah. So I was quite pleased to see that kind of stuff added in as well.
Yeah, and at this point, they managed to see Riddler take off his mask and find out who he actually is, and is taken to Arkham.
Before he goes to Arkham, though, he does go to a diner. I love that bit. It was like, my work here is done. I'm going for a midnight snack.
Yes, go get a burger on.
Yeah, that's what I'd do.
So we see him in Arkham talking to someone in the cell next to him, who we don't actually see, but we sort of know who it is. It is the one thing in the film that I really didn't want, because I was just like, the one thing I was hoping we could get away with not having in a Batman run of films. We get the Joker.
Was it? I did wonder when we got this, because obviously, I love the Joker, but we've established on other shows, and they'll all be coming onto this channel over the coming weeks, and that like your love of the Joker. And I did wonder whether, for quite a brief moment, but I did wonder whether that. Well, I thought it would actually excite you, the idea of getting a new Joker. See, I know the Jared Leto Joker has burnt you somewhat in recent years, but I thought the idea of getting something that might wash the stink of Jared Leto Joker out of your mouth might be appealing to you.
See, yes, I want rid of Leto more than anyone could know. And to be fair, I've also seen the deleted scenes where he's talking with Bats and Barry Cogan, I believe it's how you say his surname,
Yes,
was
I think
good
you're right.
as the Joker. It's an interesting thing on it. It's just one of those that there are so many interesting Batman stories that don't involve the Joker that they could do. That
But
I do feel that it's easy to go with
I
the
didn't.
Joker, and what they've done here with Penguin and what they've done with Selena, what they've done with Riddler, has not been safe. Joker just feels safe.
I didn't
As
feel like we were necessarily definitively getting, and again, like we don't know what comes next, but I didn't necessarily think definitively that meant the next thing was Joker. I almost thought, do you know what? That could be almost a running gag, is that whoever does it ends up in Arkham in a cell next to him. But also,
he drops them.
as much as I say, like, I didn't necessarily think that's what we're getting next. Also, flip a coin. It could be what we're getting next because they have cast someone, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, I didn't mind it. I think where I do agree with you is I don't think it was necessary. Although, whilst not being necessary, I guess it's a tease. Like they're trying to get you to come back for the next movie. Now, I think if there is a next movie, but I think you do that by making a great movie. You don't necessarily need to tease the Joker. But I can see why. I didn't have such a problem with her. I don't think.
It's just. See, I like what you just said there. If say Joker's just there for whoever the villains are for the piece, they get put down. They go into Arkham for some reason or whatever, and he just spouts some crazy at them to then make them have their big finale, like they did with Riddler. For him to have his big finale, then that's fine. It'll be something
almost like a kind of running storyline. Like every movie, you think it's got to be the Joker this time, and it's not. It's another one, and you get that, and then I don't know. You get to Batman 10, the Batman 10, should I say? And like I don't know, they released loads of fake trailers, and actually, when you go to the cinema, that is the movie where it's finally the Joker or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, to be honest, probably knowing Hollywood as we do, it's probably there to go. Next time, kids, you're getting the Joker. But yeah, I'd like to think that it was for a long term tease rather than for a that's what's coming next.
Yeah, it's just one of those of we could have our boys, the ventriloquist.
Oh, dude,
our boys, the Mad Hatter.
Don't
Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Fuck, we need a movie ventriloquist in. We do.
There's all these pantheons of other villains that they could do. Man-Bat.
But even if you're going to stay with some of the bigger ones, I think I'd love to see a really good Two-Face, and I feel like what they tried to do with this, I feel like I would think of them as a safe pair of hands to do Two-Face well. I think I'd trust them with a Poison Ivy style character. So yeah, I think there's a lot that they could do, and yes, I don't necessarily want that Joker, but I don't mind it being. I don't mind knowing that it is in the universe, and maybe that could always be a foreboding threat in the background of, well, actually, will the Joker get out this time, or is this the point where the Joker does some real bad shit?
Yeah. So we get our big set piece finale in MSG as the new mayor is elected, and the Riddler's henchmen, basically a bunch of internet trolls and incels dressed as the Riddler.
Excellent costumes, though. Excellent costumes, I thought. Like imagine if you and I, but yeah, you and I, if we suddenly, I don't really know that we do this, but suddenly tonight we join a cult, and in this cult, someone says, right, tomorrow we're going to go and do stuff, dress up as me. I'd probably be wearing a grey hoodie and hoping that that's his costume. But these guys had pitch perfect costumes. I was really impressed with it. Great needlework by all of them.
Yes. So tried to assassinate the newly elected mayor. Batman does Batman things, saves the day. And at the end, we see Batman and Selena parting ways.
But still having a moment, wasn't it? Like that kind of. And I know we touched on it more on the characters, more on the plot, but kind of all the way through, like Selena and Bruce, Bat and Cat, probably more than Selena and Bruce. They do have this kind of burgeoning relationship, and they're getting closer and closer, and it culminates almost in well, what do we do next? And it's like, well, I'm going this way, I'm going that way, including the actual kind of where they go off on their bikes, don't they? And when I say bikes, motorbikes, I don't want anyone to think that they got on a rally chopper and a BMX and rode off, because that would be weird. But they kind of get to a point, don't they, where they're at a junction, and you get that, and you could easily argue, like, God, this is like over egging the pudding, where they go left and right. But I thought it was done quite well. I thought it was done quite nicely, and done during daytime, which so much of this wasn't. Or if it was in daytime, it was raining, whereas this actually wasn't raining at this point.
Yes. So I think that was a great little tease ending, because it leaves you at that point of like going, well, she could come back, or we can also then at the same point have a whole Selena thing where they do as you say, a Catwoman solo.
Yeah. She goes off
film.
and does whatever she does for a year or two, and then like when she comes back, she is a changed person from what she is today, or like in this movie. And then you can kind of reestablish that relationship between them again, because if we're going through comic lore, 5 years time, Batman's changed a lot. All of a sudden, he has a Bruce Wayne identity. He has probably a lot more confidence as the Bat. In 5 years time, Selena is probably a lot more of a burglar than she is. She's had to live by her wits, and then potentially, not as rough and ready as she is at this point. And I think, yes, throwing them back together and going, is that spark still there? It would interest me if that's the road they went down.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those of, this is left so open so well that we could have more.
Yeah.
As I said, my one fear with it is that they go to type and we get a Joker film too, which
sells the tickets, doesn't it? But yeah, I think they're good enough to be able to hold that off for quite some time without that being a necessity.
Yeah. The one thing that Yully pointed out to me, which I myself didn't notice, but there are a couple of hints and nuggets that made him think that Hush could be coming in.
I didn't notice anything, so I'm happy for you to point out what I didn't see. And I might have been eating a bit of popcorn at this point, because I was back in the popcorn world.
What's Hush's dad's name? It was in.
Dude, you're expecting me to remember a name. That's my biggest weakness ever. If I hadn't written it down on a piece of paper in front of me, spoilers for those who are watching, I have to write a lot down on a piece of paper or I'll never remember it, then I've got no chance.
Let me go to my thing.
Your thing? I presume you mean your phone, and you're not looking at your penis, expecting it to tell you what Hush's father's name is.
Come on!
You know the answer to this, penis. Tell me. Stop keeping secrets. Stop winking at me and give me the answer. I mean, like, while you're looking it up to save kind of the dead air.
The awkward silence, yes.
Well, no, I think sort of storyline wise, I think they tell a good story for me. I think that's as far as I would go with it. I think it's a good establishing story, and I think it's more about establishing what this world is like, what this universe is like, who are these players in here, what I'm going to say the temperature of the city is like. And by temperature, I kind of mean like how dark it is at this point in time. And again, I know you said like about the Joker in Arkham, but I think even just doing that, that kind of tease that you have got a lot of unhinged people in here. And I say a lot. I mean, they're only really shown 2, but there are unhinged people out there. There are gangsters. There's a lot of internal crime and a lot of corruption. I think they do a really good job of setting it up. But there are times where, you know, I said about the Selena, daughter of the crime boss, element of the story. I think there is a lot of padding in the story. And I think potentially an unnecessary amount of padding that detracted from it being great to me. And I think if I'm honest, from a purely storyline perspective, I could go no further than good for this. And I think that's because it is a mixture of great, not so great, and there's enough not so great for it to only be able to top out at good.
Yeah, so the Hush guy, Tommy Elliott, he was a doctor with Thomas Wayne, and he's mentioned in the bit where they explain about Thomas Wayne being not so great.
Yes.
And also, because I just checked on the thing that the guy sent me, in one of the crime scenes, it's written on the wall, "Hush." So that's where he was.
God,
like,
I said earlier about like trying to solve the riddles and all that stuff for the Batman. Shit all chance, I didn't even notice that. I'd be a rubbish detective.
So that's the thing. Is like if them putting that in there, is that a tease for what we could get? Because I would fucking love to see that done.
It's quite nice as well, isn't it, with that Riddler story? Because they got to use a lot of words and things like that. I mean, like I guess going back to the storyline and the Riddler stuff, I really like the design of like the greetings cards and the way that kind of the riddles were delivered on that, because it is a hard character to do. You know, we go back to Batman 66, and you know, like if something would be sent to the police, it'd be a riddle, and there's always kind of been that question. They go, "What the fuck is this dude sending riddles? Like, he could get away with loads of crimes if he didn't like do this hint." And I think, you know, you have to suspend your disbelief and jump a lot. Whereas this, I think, because of the sinister nature of him and the darkness of the universe that they were doing, I think the fact that he was telegraphing this stuff in riddles to try and draw, and you know, it was to draw a rat out. You know, that was his main goal, was to actually find out a bit of information that he didn't have, or to make them expose the information to the world. I think it made that riddle part of it very, very effective and not seem silly.
Yes. I think this was fucking awesome as a whole. In the cinema, I did feel it's 3 hours. I was getting numb bum by the end.
Funny you should say that. And again, that's something we've had from Complex Theory in the comments of going, do you both agree with the pacing length at nearly 3 hours? If he felt it was a little slow at times. And if it jumped on occasions, it could have been only 2.5 hours long, which I think is a valid point. There was a lot of not Zack Snyder level of slow mo. Like, it wasn't slow mo. He was just walking backwards and forwards a lot. But yes, I do think that's a valid point. Yeah, if he got a wriggle on, you know, he might have been able to come in at a neat 2.5 hours. But yeah, I mean, it was a long film, wasn't it? I think that there's no.
Yeah.
When I've heard people describe it, often
where I don't think much of it. So I don't think there's a lot that you could have cut out, because there are a few bits, say some of the sort of Falcone stuff or some of the Riddler stuff, like where they're spending a bit more time in the crime scenes, solving the riddles and stuff. You could have topped a couple of seconds here and there off those. But I think all of it was needed. Obviously, you could have binned off the whole Joker bit and then not had any of that, so we didn't get that. But at the same point, it then gives me that fan idea of, can we have evil Joker that stays in prison? We never see him, just being the evil voice of a conscience.
Yeah. I think for time, like where I would have potentially made cuts is, I think I disagree slightly with you. Is I think there is a lot that could be cut, but I think there's lots of little stuff that could have been cut. Like almost some scenes that went to 5-6 minutes. You know, you could have done it equally as quick. And I think a lot of stuff around, you know, the corrupt people. So like the DAs and the coppers. I think sometimes, I mean, that was really obvious. Like it was there, and I think sometimes, and maybe it's because of the audience that it thought it might be speaking to. I think it felt like it needed to really, really make it clear quite often that this is a cop or a DA or something like that. And I think that some scenes just felt drawn out to me, and some exposition and information felt unnecessary. Again, I would have binned off the Falcone Catwoman storyline, but I wouldn't have binned off the characters. But if I was going to make massive cuts on this, I think you could only do it by cutting things like the Penguin storyline. And I wouldn't want that. You know, like, as much as I think you can make cuts, there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to be in there, and I'm glad they had it in there. But I do think you could trim it down, and I think you could easily come in a bit under 3 hours easily without it really harming what the movie does. Having said that, as much as it's long, I wasn't getting numb bum in the cinema, and I wasn't clock watching. This wasn't a 3+ hour movie that felt like a 10-hour movie to me. It was a 3-hour movie that felt like a 3-hour movie. And I'll take that because I've sat through many that have been shorter than that have felt a lot longer than it.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's like when me and Sarah went saw it, we were both like, "This is fucking amazing," and it wasn't that it was. It felt long watched. It was just in the Odeon, the seats were, even though we had the premium gallery super jobby seats and paid the extra £3 per ticket, the seat after a while were not comfy. But then we got in and saw all of the adverts, all the trailers. So there's an extra 40 fucking minutes of bollocks. So, you know, that's when you're sort of coming in at nigh on 4 hours in one position. Yeah, I don't even do that for WrestleMania in one position.
Certainly not this fucking year. I wouldn't. I think there is something in that, isn't there? That you go to the cinema and you're not signing up for the length of the movie, are you? You're that time they tell you it starts, and as much as you know that time they tell you it starts is total lies because they want to give you 40 minutes worth of adverts. But you don't want to go that time where you go, well, I'm going to come 40 minutes later, and that be the one bloody time that they start it at the time they say it is, and you come in 40 minutes late. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I use that time to piss around on my phone and start the popcorn and things like that. So I kind of don't include that in the experience. But yeah, you know, it's. I could see if it wasn't vibing with you, it's starting to feel like a lot more of a slog than maybe it would. But I'm with you. I certainly don't think I liked it as much as you did. I would describe it as all right to good. That's about probably as far as I go on it. But I want to see more. I think that's the most compelling part of it for me. Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of when I watched Batman Begins. Now, the Nolan verse I love, and but when I went and saw Batman Begins when it came out, I just went, it was good, and I want to see what more they'll do with this universe. And I felt exactly the same coming off the back of this. It wasn't a slam dunk for me. It did some really good stuff, and I think it established a universe that I am interested in, a Batman universe I am interested in. But yeah, not without some faults, and as I say, just a little bit drawn out at points for me.
Yeah, but it said I'm all in on it. I really, really liked it, and as I said, I really want to see what they do next. I hope they look at some of the other stuff that has come out and use that as works. Obviously, they've clearly gone. We like year 1 and year 2, but we're going to make our own story and pulled up bits from.
I'd like him to stay in that though. Like I think if we do get any more, I'd like them to keep in this era. I don't really want to necessarily see them instantaneously jump 5 years in the future where he's a lot more honed and he's got a different Batmobile. I want to see the villains coming in at this stage. I want to see them be a bit more maybe inept than they will be ultimately later on and things like that.
I'd quite like Hush as maybe a story arc they do, or maybe like the Long Halloween as a story arc, because I think those
Long
books
Halloween
could work really bloody well as films in the right hands.
So, no, I said earlier about I think a director has probably the bigger impact than a lot of the time the actors do. How would you feel about this universe continuing with the same direction and same director, but with a different Batman? A different actor playing Batman, should I say, not a different Batman.
See, if it's to be, as you say, I don't think the Bat who plays the Batman is the most important thing with Batman, because if you look, we've had Keaton, Clooney, Kilmer, Batfleck, and
Bale, and Adam West.
God, we don't mention God with everyone else.
No.
But the thing is, they've all done it differently, and they've all brought different bits to it. But Batman is always the draw to it is the character Batman.
Yeah. Well, I only ask because if Hollywood rumours are to be believed, this was a set that was fraught, and Matt Reeves, the director, and Robert Pattinson do not like each other one little bit.
No.
And I would be surprised if we get both of them back. Now, I said earlier I like Pattinson, and I think he's a great actor. I want Reeves back more than I want Pattinson.
Yeah.
Because I don't want this to be that transition from Burton to Schumacher. I don't want that. I want to see what this universe is, and I think this is Matt Reeves' universe. And again, obviously playing off of stuff that's pre-established. But good job, RPatts. But look, mate, if you can't work with him, you move on, please. Or, as I said earlier, play in other parts of the universe. Give us the Catwoman movie. Give us, talk about DC extended universe. This would be a great jumping off point for an extended universe that maybe you just lean heavily into the Bats. I mean, certainly it seems to be what their comic book range is doing most of the time now. It's 90% Bat universe and 10% everything else, from what I can tell. But
get us some Nightwing. Get us some Drake.
You can just play in that world. But yeah, it's a shame. I'm actually quite gutted to find out that I didn't get on. And I think very much it was, the rumor has it is that Matt Reeves is very much a perfectionist and probably overworks and overanalyzes the scenes. And I didn't get the feeling at all that Patterson was being a dick at all. I got the feeling that he just had to he was dealing with someone who was probably being quite obnoxious and overbearing. And I think, he's probably like, no, thanks. I can get my movie scripts anywhere. I can go and make The Lighthouse too. P.S. If you haven't seen The Lighthouse, I mentioned it earlier. Watch The Lighthouse. And P.S. There won't be a Lighthouse too. But yeah, I don't know. I can see why he wants out of that. I think who really wants to go and do that as a job? And as well as Matt Reeves did here, this isn't, and this is not to forgive some of his behaviours, but this isn't Tarantino in his prime, possibly being a wanker to people on set. This is like a director who is still kind of working their way up the echelons, and I think probably how you treat people on the way up. But goddamn, I do want more from this Batman universe, please.
Yes. So, anything else you want to add?
I wanted to kind of just briefly touch on how did we feel about it in the Bat pantheon. So, in the movie pantheon, kind of where do you think it sits in that list? And of course, everyone would have their own individual list as to what their favourite Batman movie is and what their least favourite Batman movie is. But where do we think it sits in? And I say the movies. I'm not going to have Batman 66 movie included in this list. I think we said earlier about God being off the list. I think We're talking the kind of modern Burton and onwards movies.
Yeah. I would say number one is Dark Knight, then Burton Batman, then between is Rises and Returns. The Batman sits in those three there.
How beautiful, mate! On exactly the same page with you on that. I think it sits really snugly in that stage, and I don't think of it as infinitely better than Batman Begins, but I prefer it as a start point to Batman Begins. But yes, it would sit under Nolan's second and third, and Burton's first and second for me.
And obviously, fuck tons above the shit ones.
Yeah, and I think I'm still very wary because we got such bad ones, and this doesn't feel like if it's kept in this director's hands that we'll get any bad ones. And do you know what? Like I said it earlier, like I think it will. I wanted something different. I think it is. I think it's close to the Nolan verse. I don't think it's infinitely different to them.
Yeah,
I think it is. I think it's more probably different because of the timeline that it's playing in than anything else. And that was enough for me to have that distinction there. And maybe that's one of my fears, that if you kind of fast forward it on to a more savvy and established Batman, then it might then start to try to go toe to toe with Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, and I think that's a foolish thing to do for any writer director who wants to make a Batman movie. I think you need to keep some distinctions there, and I think if you're going to go dark and if you're going to go broody and detective-y,
be different.
Go with early years. Yeah.
This thing, I love the fact that Burton's Batmans and Nolan's Batmans are so fucking different. They're still Batman. They're still the same character, and they're still the same universe, but they are so fucking different.
Yeah.
And that is what I love about it, because you've got 83 years of stories, 83 years of different ways of telling these characters. Do your thing with these characters.
Yeah.
And we can keep this as young Batman being angry, vengeful, and a detective, then I am all for that. Seddon seems to have disappeared. I'm just going to check to see if the stream is still live on the YouTubes, just in case the whole thing's gone down. So let me have a look. See, yes, we are still live. That is good. So I don't know what's going on, whether Seddon's coming back or not. But this is the time I would like to thank you all for watching us live on this, our maiden voyage on the Planet Popcast.
Did I disappear there?
Yes, you did.
Now I'm going to confess something to you. Like how, and I think, and I don't know where. I heard you say about maiden voyage, etc., etc. I think on the whole, I'm still amazed by the miracle that is us getting live again using a new bit of software, etc., etc., etc. However, a pro tip for anyone who ever wants to use YouTube ever and do something live: when a button appears on the right-hand side of your thing that says "Close all browsers," don't click yes, because that's what I did. Because I wasn't really, I was trying to transition to another bit, and I just closed everything. So apologies for that. I carried on recording even though I closed all browsers, but that was totally on me. God knows what I was thinking when I pressed that button.
So yes, as I was saying, thank you all for joining us on this.
Sorry, can I add one thing to wrap up the Batman, and then we'll go to the traditional sort of stash look to close it up. But we are Seddon and Laceys Comic Stash, and our heart is probably primarily at comics. And of course, when a comic book franchise movie comes out, I think we want to sell things. We want to We want to get people to read the comics. And I would say, if you liked this movie, seek out Batman Year One and read it, because I think there is this movie wants to be. That sounds weird. I mean, this is an homage to that. I think like Matt Reeves clearly liked that stuff. And if you think this is good, Batman Year One is better. It really is better. Get reading. Honestly, some really cool comics out there. And if you're not reading them, then you're really missing out, I think.
Yes, and as I said, with reading stuff, the Batman Catwoman run that Tom King did.
Yes. Which we're going to be revisiting again, I think, in a future episode, the Tom King run. So we will pick that up because, goddamn, we can't get ourselves enough of Batman. And thank you very much, Complex Theory, for saying it's a great show, chaps. And nice to hear a well-rounded and thought-out review. It's nice to be considered well-rounded rather than aggressive and sinister. Maybe we really can start a joke like Cult. Now, I'm going to make us look a little bit less Batman-y and a little bit more sort of traditionally Seddon and Laceys comic stash for the goodbye, which I know you were trying to get to, Chris, but there's one last little confession that I've got to make to you. Make to anyone.
You got me again.
Well, no. I haven't actually done anything for an outro, so I think when we kind of go, I'm just going to cut us to like the Batman and go. So yes. But I promise in future endeavours, I will think to go. Shit, we better have something to play us out, boy.
So yeah, as I was saying, thank you all for joining us. The pantheon of the stash will be being uploaded onto this channel. So if you are new to the stash, we're 26 episodes, 27.
And we said earlier we do a lot of Batman. We like Batman, but we've got everything from our introduction to comics for ourselves, some actual kind of deeper dives into certain series. We touch on some of the Marvel stuff,
basically
all manner of topics.
Lots of stuff that's down here has been covered.
And
we're both
suckers for a top 5 as well, aren't we? And like we said about the channel, there will be lots of content to come on the channel. Like I think we're brimming full of ideas that we want to do. And obviously we've said, please come and join us at the Facebook. Please join us on Twitter or follow us on Twitter. But this will be a constant for us, won't it? Because if there's one thing we bloody like talking about, it's comic books. So, we will release all the episodes on here probably over the next couple of weeks, including some previously unreleased ones that are recorded and ready to go as new shows.
Yes. So new shows on Sundays for the stash.
Yeah.
I don't know what your plan is with the backlog, whether you're mass dropping or...
Do you know what? For anyone who's watching this video, follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll announce when backlogs are going to be uploaded there. There's a bit of mystery. Look at that. I am the Riddler of this show. Shit, now I need to think of a riddle of when things will drop.
I just bring chaos.
Yes.
No,
actually, I think I bring chaos, don't I, when I close down my browser in the middle of a live.
So follow us on the show Twitter, said Lacey Comic, the channel Twitter, PopCulture Prod, and join us. The water is wonderful. We have cigarettes, we have booze. Come in, join us, and really join us and come on shows, set up ideas. As we said at the beginning, this is a venture for all and anyone that wants to get involved to jump in. You can't come in the stash though. The stash
production value city here. If you need someone to learn how to get on YouTube from, I think we have shown with our confidence that we would get live and are not switching it off halfway through a stream. That we're the people to learn from. But no, joking aside, if anyone's interested in doing anything, join us on the Facebook group. I mean, even if it's just a chat, I mean that's one of the whole ideas for the Facebook group is to I don't know, find like-minded people with like-minded interests. But yeah, if you're interested in doing actually anything on the channel or getting involved, we'll help. And if you're better than us, you can help us.
So until Sunday and the new stash, which I don't even know which number it is. Which one
I'm
is it?
going to say it's 24. I don't know. It's a number.
It'll be a new one that's previously not been seen elsewhere. And until next time, goodbye.